Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Industry Talk. Now, today I am joined by a very, very special guest. This is Dan Butchko, who is the CEO and founder of PlayCrafting.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you.
Now, for those of you that have watched our show, you might recognize Dan. He was with us last year. And the reason why he was here last year is PlayCrafting, his company, put on a show called Play NYC 2017. And this year, they're doing it again with Play NYC 2018. For those of you that didn't get to see this show was incredible. I had the esteemed pleasure of going to Play NYC, and it was just a phenomenal, phenomenal show. Actually, you have some numbers here. I just want to read these numbers for the people listening. There was 5,000 plus attendees, which is huge. 77,000 online views in 48 hours. You have 1,800 hours of play and 112 games, 20 talks, and 60 graffiti setups, which were exclusive setups just for this show. Dan, how are you feeling after last year?
I thought that the second year was going to be far easier than the first year, but last year, while it being tough getting it started, kind of created this exciting momentum and this really fun, big community vibe that I just wanted to make sure that this year we are nailing. So this year is even more challenging than last year, but I am more excited than ever. Having had done it last year, launched it with that many folks that it resonated with and that were there in person, people of all walks of life, really has me excited for where this is going to go in the years to come. And a lot of the work that we did between last year and this year was to really set it up so that it can be growing and growing for the next 3 years ahead of us.
I definitely agree. Like last year was a momentous occasion. Like there was just a lot going on. Wall-to-wall games, 3 floors. You were in Terminal 5 last year, which was a club, and you had the stage set up like an old 80s, living room and games playing. And the talks, I went to a couple talks. They were interesting. The negative thing I will say about the talks, at least last year, is they were in 2 different locations. The talks were in the college, and everything else was in Terminal 5. And this year, you're actually in the Manhattan Center Hammerstein Ballroom, which is a much bigger venue. Does that mean we're going to get the talks and everything in the same room this year?
Yeah, so we're structuring the talks and panels a little bit differently this year. Last year's venue just, we couldn't fit everything in one place. So that's why we had to have it in a separate space. We had a lot of folks watching online, but it was hard to get people's attention in person because everybody was running to the wall-to-wall games in Terminal 5 proper. So this year, the talks and panels piece, we're kind of separating out a little bit. Some of that content's going to be integrated into our stream, which is, again, happening from the main stage. And we are putting together a smaller talks and panels program for the night before on that Friday night. We wanted to make sure that people's maximum attention can be on the show floor. And that's really where the majority of folks that came in wanted to go last year. So having talks and panels be a complement to the show floor rather than a replacement for it was really important to us this year.
Yeah, that is smart too, because there were a few talks I wanted to see, but I just couldn't get away. There was so much going on at Terminal 5, and I was like, oh man, I don't have time now to walk because it was a couple blocks over. So I'm like, I'm gonna miss it. Now, I have heard some testimonials because last year you were generous enough to give us some tickets to give out to NintendoFuse listeners, and I heard back from a lot of them that came because we did have a good number. And everybody that went told me that they had an amazing time, and they wanted me to pass this along to you. That they loved the games they showed. Several people who said, I wasn't planning on buying anything. Like, I downloaded that on my Switch, like that night, or that on my phone that night. Like on the way home from the city, I was playing that game because of what I played at Play NYC.
That's so good to hear.
Oh, it's like glowing from everybody that from our camp that was able to go thanks to a generous gift. They all had a phenomenal time, and everyone was like, when's next year, what's going on? And I said, I told them, and I'll say it now and I'll say it later, it's August 11th and 12th. I said, it's coming up. I said, stay tuned, we'll see what's going on. I said, but this is a show you do not want to miss. and I don't know if you watch it or not. Michael Pachter, I don't know if you know who that is.
Yep.
Okay, he does a show on Sifted called Pachter Factor, and I occasionally watch the show. And there was one episode where he was watching, and they were talking about the big shows, and he threw out there Play NYC.
Oh,
Like
really?
he
Which
actually said
episode
Play.
was that?
I'll have to find the number for you and I'll send it.
Oh,
But he actually said, Play NYC is another one that's getting big. And I was like, whoa, all right, that's so
nice.
cool. I was so happy to hear that.
He's super
Uh,
nice. I've met with him a few times before, and he's been a huge proponent of Play NYC behind the scenes. It's nice to hear that he's mentioned it publicly too. It's cool.
yeah. I was like, oh, that's so cool because, like you said originally, New York City, as big as a city as it is, doesn't get the gaming recognition. And that's something that you're doing exceptionally well, is bringing gaming back to Play NYC, especially since a lot of it has left, like New York Comic Con, which is really our other big con in the area. And I love to see attention, especially because so many of these are indie developers who really need that attention.
Right. Yeah, and we launched Play NYC last year primarily at its core to help elevate New York City as a hub for gaming culture. So with that comes lifting up the developer voices that are here. So a lot of the folks that were there last year were from like in and around the New York City area and the tri-state region. That goes from the developers themselves to the gamers and the fans that come through, and even the streaming community. It really resonated with folks from Twitch in particular, but also some folks that are streaming on YouTube and Mixer and some other platforms. So, as we're growing in these years to come, it's important to me, at least, to make sure that that message is not lost and that New York City and what's going on in this region are elevated, while also being able to welcome in some of the folks from other cities and other countries as well.
And it did that. You know what? It honestly did that. A lot of people who I got to talk to, a lot of the developers, they were very humble. They were like, "Oh, I'm so happy you're giving me 5 minutes of your time," and it's not like, "Oh yeah, you just press whatever." Like they were like, "Oh my God, thank you," and it was so nice to see. And just get that warm reception. Everybody was super nice. I mean, there were developers there. They were giving out games. They were giving out their games. One of them, I played with a couple of my friends who wound up going. I was like, oh, you got to go to this. And it was like you win the game, and the winner gets a copy of the game. And we had such a good time. We were there 45 minutes it took to play the game. He's like, you all get 3 copies of the game. Like, just there you go. Like,
which game was it? Do you remember?
A Sundered, I think it was Sundered or something like that. It was like an Egyptian game. Oh,
Sumer.
Sumer, that was it.
Yeah,
Sumer, yeah. That was a long game, and the developer was really nice. And
that just came out on Switch too.
Yeah, that was a good game. There were a lot of good games. And this shirt I got there next up, Hero. They were very, very nice. And even the VR, there was a lot of VR. I wasn't expecting that. Like, it was a lot of diversity. And I'm curious, there was mobile, there was VR, there was, some console. One developer had a 3DS, there was some Switch, there was PS4, Xbox. There was one Flappy Bird game that was played with a fidget spinner, like some really weird stuff. What about this year? Are we getting like more diversity? Are we getting any bigger companies coming in? Is it going to be the same companies back? Like, I know everything's not locked down, but what can you tell us so far?
Yeah. So it's a combination of all of those things. So there's a lot of folks that are returning this year, either with updated versions of the games that they had last year or their new projects, which is super exciting. I wanted to make sure that we have as much retention as possible from developers year to year. If it was brand new developers this year, then I would be worried. If it was only new developers, at least. There's going to be a bigger presence from Avalanche Studios, who I like to call like one of the busiest studios in the game right now, because they just announced 3 open world games in the past couple months. So they're working on Rage 2 with id Software. They're working on Just Cause 4. The team in New York is the one that's working on Just Cause 4, which is coming out later this year. And then they also announced, I think it's called Generation Zero, and that's another open world game that they're working on for next year. So they were super excited about it last year and have amplified and leveled up their own presence this year. So that was really encouraging and exciting. A lot of the folks that were there last year that were just in like the TV stands and the kiosks that we had on like the balcony levels are upgrading to larger booth space on the main floor. which is really exciting. And I've already seen a number of developers signing on from PlayCrafting communities outside of New York as well. So we have a number of games that are going to be on site from San Francisco already, as well as some folks from our Boston community. It sounds like we're going to have some coming out of Austin as well. And I think, you know, as the show grows and grows, you're going to see more representation from developers outside of the region as well, which is what we really want to make happen. We want this to be something that the local community can use to amplify their own voices and get their games into the hands of players, as well as, you know, the larger developers and publishers from outside of New York. We want them to be paying attention to New York as well, even if they're not stationed here, you know. So Avalanche is a big one that's coming back. We have Fabraz, which is the maker of Slimeson. I'm sure I talked about them at length last year. They have a bigger space this year. They've released multiple versions of Slimeson. They've done a bunch of downloadable packs. And they've also gone into micro-publishing as well. So they are publishing a game called Spirit Sphere DX, which is for the Nintendo Switch. And what I think is really cool about that game is it's kind of... it's almost like a volleying game where you're hitting the sphere back and forth, and it's 2 players, and you're actually playing 2 players on the same Switch, and you're holding it like vertically across from each other. So you would have, so you would have one of the Joy-Cons in your hand, I would have the other Joy-Con in my hand, but it'd still be connected to the screen, and we'd be looking at the screen in between us.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah. That game, I think, is coming out either this week or next week, but don't quote me on that. It's coming out very soon, if not now. And that's it's right in line with their sort of pixel art style that they won awards with Slimeson too. Really excited to have them back on the Nintendo side too. And yeah, there's a lot of developers that are on site that don't typically show at larger events because they can't afford the time or the budget, et cetera, to get out of New York and go all the way to the West Coast or go up to PAX East. So there's a lot of folks that people have never heard of that are going to be there as well. Many of them are smaller games that are new, and some of them are, like, you'd be blown away by the scale and the level of polish that these games have. There just hasn't been enough platforms on which to, like, amplify their voices and get the word out there. PlayCrafting at its core is a community of developers, so we love seeing folks like that coming up through Play NYC and using it as an opportunity to connect with thousands of people.
You know, that you know, interesting. You mentioned Slimeson. That's actually one of the ones that, you know, a friend of mine said, hey, you know, I tried that, and boy, I had to get it, and I love it. And I know that Limited Run just did a physical of that too, which is great. Like, that developer just got up there, and this new title sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
I agree with you
on
the
kick out of it.
Oh, I can't wait. You know, I'm not even a digital person, and, you know, I played a couple of these digital only, and I said that to every developer. I'm like, come on, physical. The developers of Slimeson clearly listened. They went with Limited Run, but you know, the polish last year on some of these games was absolutely phenomenal. And I think, for me personally, what made it was being able to talk to the developers. And I think that's what a lot of people think of when they think of a stage show or a convention like this. You think you're going to go to a booth and there's going to be an assistant that's going to be like, oh, here's how to play the game. And it's just that. It's a hired assistant. Here, you're talking right to the developer's face. And it's so great to have that one-on-one, like, oh yeah, I played your demo, and this is what I like, this is what I don't like, and then you see their changes possibly make it into the real game.
Right.
And some of these people have, like, real touching stories. You know, some games last year that were like somber tales, and it's like, oh, this is based off, you know, my real life, and I'm like, wow, you know, like, that hits you right there, you know.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Since we at our heart are a community of developers, I know a lot of those stories, and I hear those stories, and I know the people behind these games, and it's, like, puzzling to me that not more people know those stories, because I think, especially in today's culture, a lot of folks forget that there are human beings that are making the games that they love to play. There's a lot of, like, sort of online hate around games that people that they don't like, or, like, complaining about certain parts of games, and it's important to make sure player feedback is a part of the process. But on the flip side, I like making sure that the message that there is human beings behind the games comes through, and fostering as much of that connection for folks within the community, as well as welcoming people from outside of New York to doing that, I think really helps us get those voices heard.
Oh, I definitely agree. It's so humbling when they feel so appreciative, and then you see, you come on, you see like, oh yeah, this game is now getting awards, or this game came out, and you look at the internet praise, and you feel that for the developer because you've met them, and that's what this is an experience. You get the chance. Anyone going gets the chance to meet with these developers, talk with them one-on-one, and really get to feel their game, because they just want to show you a good time. I mean, they just want you to go and have fun, and there's so many. And if there's more this year than last year, then you're in for a treat, because last year you were packed. I mean, you had like the top rows, balconies, like you had like so many people, like we were on top of each other, but no one complained. Everyone was just happy to have a good time.
That's part of why we wanted to find a new venue for it too. We're in a new space. It's called the Manhattan Center, which is an even better location in terms of placement on the island. It's right across the street from Penn Station on 34th and 8th Avenue. It's a 4-floor concert venue, and it is very similar to last year's venue in that it is, a concert venue with balcony levels and whatnot. But there are even more like nooks and crannies to fit some like interesting games into for this year. And we're equipped now to welcome up to 10,000 people. We had sold out last year on the Saturday because it was super, super tight, especially in those like smaller hallways and whatnot. So now we're ready for twice as many people, and we're doing the best we can to get twice as many people there too.
Yeah, well, you know what? I don't think you're going to have a problem. I think one of the biggest things for this has been word of mouth. And I've gotten emails again from some of the people that came. We have one group that came from Chicago. They won our tickets. They came over. They were planning a trip to New York. They said this is perfect. They came. They had a good time. They emailed me. They said, really want to thank for that experience, and it was just so wonderful. And they're thinking about doing it again next year. If they win tickets, great. If they don't, then they're looking into, hey, just come in and do it because I had a good time.
Yeah.
That's what this is about. The gaming industry, it's about playing and having fun. If you're having a good time, then great. And the beauty here is if you don't like a particular game, don't play it. Move on. It's so many games.
Right, and we really wanted to design Play NYC from the ground up to not just be a convention for gamers, but to be a convention for people to just come and have a really good time, whether or not they know what like the latest release is or what the super indie titles are that are being released. We like the idea of families coming and just treating it like a carnival. You just want to go and you want to have a good time in a space, and if you enjoy something, then buy it or download it later on. If you don't, then just chalk it up to a really fun day and look forward to next year. And having it in like the summer time frame is important to us too, because it allows us to welcome as many people as possible from around the world for it. And really, I think that that's really the biggest takeaway across the board for myself personally and for the developers that are on site. It's just getting to see as many people as possible playing those games and discovering new games that they never knew existed.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I do want to ask you, last year, the panels were exclusive for the press on Saturday, and then Sunday you opened them up to anybody. This year, is that the same thing? If someone buys a ticket, they're going to Play NYC, can they also go to the panels this year, or they have a special ticket for that?
Yeah, so there is a special ticket again. It's called the Devs and Pros Pass. So we have exhibitor passes, devs and pros passes, and like press and influencers. Those folks all have access to the talks and panels. They will be posted online again afterward. But we should definitely talk about getting some tickets out to the folks that are watching and listening in the NintendoFuse universe too, because we'd love to offer some again this year so people can get that access.
Thank you. That is amazing. I know it was a huge response, positive response last year. So many people. You single-handedly put smiles on so many people's faces with that, because they won these tickets, and then they came and they had a great time, and it really made people's days that much better. And you know, the interesting thing about going to Play NYC, because obviously we met. For me, it was actually a pretty dark time. You know, it was a pretty rough day. In fact, I think it was like a week after Play NYC, my stepmother actually passed, and and it was like a bright time during that. Like it was like everything was going bad, and it was like just a party day and a carnival day, and it was just awesome. So I definitely do want to thank you, not only for last year's experience, but also for this year. That is very, very generous, and I know the NintendoFuse community will greatly appreciate it. So I do want to say, this year you're still going to have that stage again, where it was dressed up like a you know, 80s living room.
Yeah, we're working on the set design right now. I have like this unquenchable thirst to make each year crazier and bigger than the year before, so it's getting finalized right now. But the stage will be built out again. It's a bigger stage. I think it's a cooler stage inside the Hammerstein Ballroom at the Manhattan Center. Yeah, that'll be where our main stream is happening throughout the weekend, which will be streamed online. We'll have developer interviews, we'll have gameplay debuts, that kind of stuff. We're working on a couple of additional like audience participation kinds of things that people can do that are as ways to interact with the stream itself throughout the weekend. But yeah, the point of the stage on site is to give it like a real focal point for the event without taking away from all the different booths and whatnot, because we want people to be able to get through that space as much as possible and play as many games as they possibly can.
Yeah, that was a really neat thing. I watched a lot of it actually from the second and third floor, because getting down there on the first floor was really hard to do. But another neat thing that your you know, Play NYC did that I didn't see a lot of others was actually give out free snacks. You know, free snacks and free drinks and lemonade and iced tea. I was like, this is really nice. You know, it's just a nice little touch. I don't know if you're doing something similar again, but you know, a lot of people are like, yeah, that was really nice. You know, didn't appreciate, you know, didn't expect it, and they appreciated it.
Yeah, it's being finalized right now, but it looks like we'll have concessions that are available for purchase, and we'll also likely have some free stuff to give away too.
That's great. Are you gonna have more, like, I think Video Games New York was there? Are you gonna have actually some vendors there as well, or is it, you know, saying no to that and just having games?
Yeah, we're talking to Video Games New York and a couple of other folks to bring them on site again. Across the board, no matter who the exhibitor is, the only requirement for a booth space is to make sure it's interactive. So even if it is like a Video Games New York, if you remember last year, they have a couple of games that they actually are publishing as well. So they have those games on site. We want every space to be playable. Already this year, we actually have a streamer who wanted to get a booth. Yeah. So he's working with a couple of the local developers to actually have their game on site in his booth to play with people as they're coming through. And, you know, as you were saying before, especially given the climate nowadays, people are going through some dark times, and we like the opportunity to use games as a great uniter. And so whether you are a streamer or a developer or a player, we like to use Play NYC as an opportunity to leave all that stuff at the door and come in and just have a good time, play some games, bring the whole family, and just use it as a way to connect with people in your local community if you're from nearby, or come visit New York and see a side of New York that perhaps you've never seen before.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, life is so crazy, and you need to really appreciate it. And, you know, if you could have a day like this, like you said, a carnival. This is like a carnival for gamers, really.
Right.
And I can't wait to see what this year does. I do want to mention the venue. One nice thing about this venue, for me, definitely coming from Jersey, we're coming from the Jersey side. Like last year, I'd take the ferry over and then had to take a taxi up. This is great. Penn Station is a very local, you know, hub. It's very easy to get to Penn Station via so many trains and subways. I think that's a great choice. What led, besides the tight hallways and the other one, what led to let's go to the Manhattan Center this time?
Yeah, you know, I really wanted a space that we could grow into for years to come. So the Manhattan Center is the overall complex that is that block. And within it, there are 4 or 5 venues that are like smaller that make up the overall whole. The largest space in there is the Hammerstein Ballroom. That's where we're having the majority of activities this year around Play NYC. But the idea here is that this year we have the 4 floors of the Hammerstein Ballroom. Next year we start taking over a couple of the other spaces within it, so that by the time 2020 comes along, we are consuming all of the Manhattan Center and just filling up not just that part of the building with games, with the entire complex itself. There's some really cool spaces that are like facing the sidewalk where you can do some cool pop-up interactive stuff on the street, even if you aren't inside. The Manhattan Center this year was really our commitment to Play NYC becoming an institution moving forward, and really sort of digging in and like building the foundation so that the show can grow and grow in the next few years, and do so without losing the really unique flavor that you get when you have an event like this in a space that is not a typical convention space. There's spaces like the Javits Center, which is by far like the go-to spot for something like this in New York. But we want to, for as long as we possibly can, stay in unconventional convention spaces, so that you have a really cool vibe to it and a really fun transformation of the space. As soon as you go into a convention space, it starts feeling like it could be anywhere else, and we want to feel like you can't be anywhere else right now. It's like it's a very unique, fun thing that can only happen in that spot. So taking sort of weird side corners, we're talking about there's like 6 opera boxes that frame the stage, and we're talking about filling those up with some really interesting experiences that are exclusive to the event too. I love seeing features like that in a convention because I myself am not a game developer. I am a community grower and I am an event producer. So I love the idea of creating a really special experience, and having it in a space like this really helps us to do that. The Manhattan Center has been an incredible partner, and already I'm excited for 2019 and 2020 because I already have the dates for those, which is super cool. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so the idea here is that as soon as Play NYC 2018 is over, we can start talking about 2019, and suddenly it gives you that vibe that an E3 or a GDC has when you have the date for the following year immediately after that year is over. And I think that's really what's going to separate this year from last year. There's no question of when it's going to happen and where it's going to happen moving forward, and we are like so equipped and excited for just building it for the years to come.
Yeah, that's something I saw even with E3 last week. On Thursday there was a sign that said "See you next year" with the dates. Like it was already done. Like here you go, lock in your calendars, and it's great to hear that. Like I like Terminal 5, but I'm so happy location-wise in terms of getting to the destination, as well as having this new venue, and to hear that, like I'm excited. I want 2020 already, and not really, but like I can't wait to see what it's like in 2020 because Javits Center, you're right. Javits Center it's a beautiful venue. It's very big, but it does feel samey. It's just a box and everyone around the box. That's one thing that a lot of people who came up to me and I talked with last year, they're like, "Is this a club?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is a club." They're like, "That's so weird." And I say, "Yeah, like there's the stage and people are playing on it, and here's the bar and people are playing, that Sega Dreamcast on the bar, and they're just playing, games." I'm like, that's so weird. Like I know, and I like that. Especially like going in the back door where there was like a guard there, and it was like oh it's like a bouncer, the club. It's like this is so weird, but it felt so cool, and I like that. I like that idea of unconventional spaces being used. Video games are an art, and now you're making an art out of the art of video games, which is like so meta, but it's so cool at the same time.
Yeah, I like the idea of designing this experience for people to come in that is consistent of all of the games that they'd play along the way, but I like the idea of conceptualizing what the overall journey is. So when I think about as I'm envisioning myself as just someone who's come into Play NYC, they walk in the door, what's the first thing they see? I like the idea of like a line of sight to the crazy stage with the set build out. And last year, as you said, it was like a 80s family den kind of setup. What are some things we can do with projections? And last year there was a huge disco ball in the middle of it. So like giving people something to get really excited about, that it just like has you take a step back and say, wow, this is something I've never seen before, is something that really gets me excited. And the idea of taking all these parts that wouldn't typically fit together, so all these different kinds of games, mobile games, console games, PC games, tabletop games, physical games, installations like our graffiti games projects, um, having all those like random parts mixed together and finding a through line for all of them is what's super exciting to me. And that's really, I think that really speaks to the diversity of our community as well, and the kinds of work that they're doing and the kinds of games that they're creating too.
Yeah, I agree. Now, speaking of those developers, I'm just curious. I think I probably asked you this last year, but have you actually reached out to the big three, or the Activision, EA, Ubisoft? Have you talked with any of them and said, hey, is there a chance you can send a guy or two over and at least put up a little sign that says, yeah, we're here, kind of deal?
Yeah. I certainly have spoken to all of them in some capacity, both last year and this year. And I think one of the biggest challenges in terms of any convention is timing. So if we were launching Play NYC in LA, for example, it wouldn't be called Play NYC, but it'd be called Play LA. We'll get there. I want to do a Play LA. But if we were launching it there, it'd be a lot easier to get the larger developers there with a shorter notice because they're local. So there's a lot of developers who are in LA. There's a lot of folks in San Francisco, even up in Seattle. A challenge has been getting the word out to those folks early enough so that we're on the radar moving forward. And I think that having locked in 3 years now for Play NYC, I'm thinking of like anytime I get a reason why they can't join, how can I like knock that down as a barrier? And so the 3-year contract with the Manhattan Center really enables us to do that, because now we can be on the radar for 2019 right now,
Yeah.
So definitely spoken to them. Not sure yet if one of them will have a presence this year or not. Right now, it still is very much an indie focus. And if it is a AAA studio, it'll be something like an Avalanche, which is third party, first or second. But certainly open to and wanting to move toward bringing those folks on board. It's just a matter of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, getting the 3-year lock, I think, is a very good, stepping stone. And unfortunately, distance is a negative. But hopefully someone says, hey, you know what? We're going to do it. We're going to send some people over. Even like Nintendo has New York store,
Yeah, exactly. And it's New York City. So it's crazy to me. And I think this really speaks to the need for something like this in New York, because a lot of developers and even fans will get this. You wind up having to sell New York as a place to do things, which is absolutely unfathomable to me. I never thought that would be part of my job. But I spend a lot of time talking to developers and publishers at I just came back from E3. I was out there. I go to GDC each year. And it's really getting them excited and telling them, you got to pay attention to the tri-state area in the Northeast. There's so many fans that are there that don't have enough places to meet developers and try games, and they're really hungry for it. I am not just organizing this. I'm also a gamer myself. I love games, and it's crazy to me that something like this hasn't existed up until now. There's a lot of like smaller things that are going on around the city that are focusing on a type of game or a type of developer. And then, of course, there's Comic-Con, but games are a small slice of it. So it's nuts to me that this hadn't been happening already. There's a lot of challenges with it, of course, but it's only a matter of time, and all those folks will be on board in due time. I'm sure of it.
Now, here's just a kind of random question. I know, like, New York Comic Con and stuff, celebrities will go. Did you have any celebrities last year? I didn't see any, but do you know of any celebrities that came to check out the games?
Celebrities. We had We had some higher level streamers on site. Um, I wouldn't say there were any like just straight up celebrities that people would know regardless of being in games. Um, I have a feeling a couple might show up this year. Um, but, obviously that's one area that we like to have a focus on to make sure that, we're attracting even celebs because the celebs bring even more people to the event too. So it's important.
That's why I asked, because they see a so and so here. It's like, oh well, they're there. Well, maybe I should go there too. And I know that's a lot in New York.
And that's really why we knew that that Play NYC was here to stay, because last year did not have one of the big three, did not have any celebrities, and had 5,000 people in person and almost 80,000 more watching from home. So it's one of those mentalities of like, if you build it, they will come. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Well, it was proven. Last year was a success, and it was a ton of fun, and I'm looking forward to this year. Anything you want to say, like last call to the people to say like, hey, why you want them to come and what they'll experience?
Yeah, Play NYC is a games event like no other for people of all backgrounds, all ages, and you don't have to be a gamer to go to it. If you are a gamer, you're going to have a lot of fun. You're going to find a lot of different things that you'll enjoy across the board. We don't care where you're coming from, who you are. All we care about is that you want to come, have a good time, and connect with people, because to us, like I said, games are the great uniter. So come through, meet developers, find out about games that you've never heard about, and if you like them, support those developers, download their games, buy their products, and stay in touch with them after the fact, because they like hearing from you just as much as you like hearing from them, especially these smaller teams and these more local developers. You'll find something you're going to love at Play NYC. I can guarantee that. If you can't, I will give you my email and we can talk about it, and we'll have it there next year. But yeah, Play NYC at its core is I like to call it the crown jewel of our PlayCrafting community, because it unites developers from all three cities. It unites streamers from the local community and fans from the local community as well. And it really is a show like no other, because those developers who are the exhibitors at Play NYC have a real say in how it's shaped. And I'm on the phone with them before they even sign on as exhibitors, going through every single individual detail, because it's important to me that everybody who's there feels like they have a stake in what's going on, because they do. It's in the service to the community. So it's a come one, come all. Give us 2 days and we'll give you a playable building unlike anything you've seen before. It'll be 100% playable and interactive, and you're just going to have tons of fun and be blown away by the things that you discover there. And we'd love to have you join us.
Yeah, and if you are interested in joining, you can go to play-nyc.com. Tickets are available now. They're through Ticketmaster. I just went and checked. Looks like it's $33 a ticket. The tickets for one day or both days?
So the general admission tickets are actually time periods. So we've lengthened the show floor hours to be from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. each day, and you can buy like a time period per day. So it's 10 to 3 or 3 to 8 on Saturday or Sunday. There's family packs of 4 tickets as well. So it's it's called a me plus 3.
Yeah, so that's $25 a ticket that way.
Yeah. So that takes like the cost down per person. If you're a developer or industry professional, you can get a Dev and Pro pass. And if you're a streamer, we'd love for you to come through too. Whether you are an established streamer or an aspiring one, there's going to be a lot of those folks on board as well. And they just want to meet more people and talk about games and play games with folks. So regardless of where you're coming from, you just want to play games, you want to make games, you should definitely come check it out.
I couldn't agree more. Play NYC last year was amazing. This year, I am so excited for this. This sounds like so much better than last year. And last year was already at an 11 out of 10. So this is probably going to be a 15 or so.
I'm hoping.
I am too. I had a lot of fun. Dan, thank you so much for joining me today. This is always a pleasure. It's always great to see you and talk with you about Play NYC. And I'm looking forward to meeting up with you in August and hanging out because, yeah, this was just so good last year.
Thank you, Barry. I can't wait for it.
And for all you listening, please absolutely go check them out. play-nyc.com. Pick up passes. I'll be in contact with Dan, and we'll let you guys know about the tickets that he has so graciously decided to let us give out again, like last year. And we'll do something with the podcast, and we'll make sure that you guys out there, and if you guys went last year, please let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear testimonials. I'd love to hear testimonials. I'm sure Dan would too.
Absolutely.
And,
positive, negative, everything in between. We want to hear all of your feedback, because if it's not, if you're not having a good time there, we want to make sure the experience is getting better and better. And if you're having a blast, we want to do more of the things that you want to see as we're planning this out in the years to come.
There you go. You heard it from the man in charge. He wants to make this a better experience for you, the individual, and you, the group. So please let us know. Let Dan know, most importantly. Thank you for watching this wonderful episode of Industry Talk. Dan, again, it's always a pleasure. And remember, guys, for all your Nintendo news, please go to NintendoFuse.com. Go to our YouTube page, subscribe, like us, share. For more industry talks like this, including going back and you can rewatch the one for Play NYC 2017. That's on there. Also, our game chats, our podcasts, and all our wonderful good content. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.
Bye-bye.